Welcome to the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Wright, attorney, author, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. This is the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to episode 14 of the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. Today we have Doreen K, who's going to talk about her experience, strength, and hope with untying the complexities between divorce and alcoholism. Doreen is a former client of mine and a really good friend, and she's going to talk about her journey with her ex-husband. We'll call him Michael. Is that fair, Doreen? Michael's not his name. We're just going to use that as sort of a pseudonym to protect his privacy. But we're just going to talk about her journey when the situation with the alcohol and the substance abuse and a lot of mental health issues too that led up to the breakdown of her marriage and how the divorce played out with all of these balls in play. Doreen, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know it's like 5 o'clock on a Thursday and you've worked a long day, but I really appreciate you taking the time to carve out and just talk about the trauma really of what you had to go through with Michael and the 2 kids. So welcome.
I'm glad to be here. You were a big part of getting me through everything that I had to go through, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad we had a chance to work together. So let's start off. It was a 20-year marriage, 2 really long term. Michael was a union carpenter, and you guys had 2 kids who were high school, college age, right around the time of the divorce. And you, if I recall, you guys were divorced in 2018. I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So talk about, the marriage and how Michael's alcoholism progressed and what really led up to the breakdown of the marriage.
We were married for 20 years. When he had a drinking issue when we first got married. I for about 14 years of that 20-year marriage, he was sober. He was, a loving, caring dad. We were a good family. We had our issues. Everybody has their issues. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't by any means, but it was better when he wasn't drinking. But he always, had suffered with depression and anxiety.
Mm.
And when my daughter was born, it was, if you don't stop drinking, I'm taking her and I'm leaving, because I didn't want her to grow up in that environment. So he loved her so much that he quit drinking for 14 years.
Mm.
And that time, and that time we struggled with other issues, struggled with, like I said, his depression, anxiety, and how he dealt with it. But we were, our kids were young, and we were focused on raising them in a good home, giving them, a loving place and a safe place to live.
Mm-hmm. So how did you first become aware of Michael's struggles with the alcohol? 14 years in, he sort of relapsed. How did that transpire?
So it was I would say it was kind of a gradual thing. It was, he had been sober for a long time. The kids had gotten older. They were, starting high school, and he felt like he wanted to be social.
Mm.
And so he's like, I'm just going to have a beer or 2. And then I would say, he probably did that for about a year, and then it turned into, adding nips or, and that was his real struggle, was when he started to drink hard alcohol. It changed who he was.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And it was kind of a downhill from there.
Mm-hmm. So during this time, what were some of the emotional and psychological challenges you were facing while you were trying to support him through this? I mean, were you sort of enabling him? I mean, were you in denial? What were you facing during this time?
So I always hid his alcoholism from the majority of my friends and family as best as I could. I didn't talk to them about it, except for my very close friends, the ones who'd been through what I'd been through before, the ones that were really understand and could connect with me. For the most part, I hid his alcoholism, and I guess I did kind of enable him, because we had decided that I was going to stay home and take care of the kids.
Mhm.
And so he was, at that time, he was like the sole breadwinner. He was the support of the family, the financial support. So it was very scary, the thought of possibly not having that and having to figure things out for myself. That was always a huge fear for me.
Mhm.
And so I guess in my own way, I did, hiding things for him, hiding it from people so people wouldn't know what was going on. I guess in that way, yes, I did enable him. I
And
never supported his drinking. I didn't buy it for him. I didn't do
Right.
that. But in a way, you know what I mean? Because I didn't speak to his family about it. I didn't speak to my family about it.
yeah, right,
I hid the truth for him.
right. So, how did Michael's alcoholism start to affect the family? In what way did it start to impact your relationship, your family life, and the overall well-being of your family dynamic?
So I think it affected me the most because I knew from before the kids were born what I went through. And I guess I kind of had it was kind of like a PTSD thing where I knew what was coming
Mhm.
and, or what could happen.
Okay.
And I didn't want that in my life again.
And what started happening? Like, give me some examples of, was there crazy behavior? Was there fighting? What was going on?
It's, anger, you know what I mean? He gets he would get angry, whatever. But, and then it was, he'd pass out on you know what I mean? He'd be passing out,
Mm.
And things like that. And it was just, it hadn't gotten too heated. Earlier in our relationship before the children, yes, it was anger, throwing things, breaking things, things like that. It was never abuse. He never, never touched me. It was not like that. But I was afraid that all of that was going to start up again.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a conversation with him and said, your drinking is going to ruin our relationship.
Mm-hmm. Tough, really tough.
Yeah, it
Basically
was
painted into
yeah.
a corner, essentially.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was, and to be fair, I kind of was at the point where I wasn't ready to go through all that with him again.
Mm. Did you seek any professional help or counseling during this time when he started his slow decline?
So I had always asked him before he even started drinking if he would please see a therapist because of his depression and anxiety, because he always had anger issues, whether he was drinking or not. And it could be explosive, things like that. But it never, he would never accept that. It wouldn't, no matter how many heartfelt conversations I had and, asking him to please get some help, he didn't want to go there. As far as couples therapy, no, I guess part of me felt like if he wasn't going to go to therapy for himself, why was he going to go with me? And no, I didn't ask him.
Did you have any kind of a support network for yourself, family?
I had a lot of family and friends, that tried to hold me up.
So even while you were trying to conceal it and hide it, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely
friends
embarrassing.
that I did have knew what was going on. They tried to be supportive with me. They tried to, when it was hard to, keep it hidden from, a lot of people, but then to, have the few people that knew what was going on, being able to talk to them was good. But it was also, me realizing that when I'm talking to them, knowing that I'm not going to change things, that I was out of my control.
So what were some of the key factors that led you to consider divorce? And what were the major obstacles you had to overcome during the decision-making process?
That conversation that I had with him, was about a year before I actually asked for a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Where I told him, that his drinking was going to ruin our marriage. And I felt like I guess I don't want to say gave up, but I just didn't have it in me to go through this all again. I was dealing with it for over a year. And he he was hiding it. You know what I mean? He was trying to hide the fact that he was drinking. When he was drinking, he could be rude and crude or lose his temper. And
So how was he hiding it? Were you finding bottles around the house?
oh yeah, I was finding nips. Yeah.
Okay.
He was trying to pretend like he wasn't doing it. And I knew by his behavior, and he wasn't always, and believe me, he wasn't always mean or anything like that. But we had other problems in our marriage. We were growing apart.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't all because of the drinking. It was, we wanted different things out of life. I wanted to go on vacations, take our kids, do things. He never wanted to do anything like that.
Right.
He didn't support planning a vacation with kids. We never went anywhere. I would struggle with having, let's go out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to take the kids. I have to make him we're going to take the kids to the movies. Or I just take them myself. Myself. And I wanted more from my life. I don't want to say it was a midlife crisis. I was, 50 years old, and I was in my early 50s, and I knew what I didn't want for the rest of my life. And I didn't want to be staying home and not doing anything. My kids were getting older.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a life. You know what I mean? It was, and it didn't have to be a lot, but I'd date nights and things like that. And we never had those.
Just wasn't in the cards with him.
No.
So when it was finally time to push go for the divorce, it wasn't really easy at all. I mean, we had a fight the whole way. I mean, and he had a pretty good lawyer too. I mean, his lawyer was pretty reasonable, and I think his lawyer was pretty frustrated with him halfway in. And there was some restraining orders. Talk a little bit about, when you pushed go, what happened, what the fallout was.
When I told him that I wanted the divorce, it's just like he went over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped drinking immediately for a short time, but he was not in his right mind. He was, and he was obsessive. And
How was he obsessive?
From the time he got home from work till God knows what time, he would just be at me, constantly on me, to the point where I was hardly getting any sleep.
Is this before or after he was served with the papers?
Before.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So his reactions, I had to say he wasn't well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a point where he had to leave the house because of the situation that was created at home. And then once he had to leave, and
how did he leave?
Well, he was
voluntarily or what happened?
No. We had a situation that if he hadn't left, it could have been reported. You know what I mean? I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but I didn't want to lose my kids.
Right.
So it was, I told him he had to go. Mm-hmm. He had to leave.
Right.
And
he was a liability at that point.
Yes, absolutely. And that was so hard for him. And he just went off the deep end with his drinking after that. And then from there on, it just spiraled downwards.
Right.
With restraining orders it was,
Yeah. I mean, the frustrating part for me in the whole process was just that, he wouldn't listen to his lawyer. Everything was just a fight all the way. He wouldn't listen to the judge. He wouldn't want to listen to the lawyer. And again, he was not in his right mind. And
no, he wasn't.
Alcoholism.
He was very angry.
Right.
He was, the alcohol took over. He wasn't in his right mind.
Right. Did you feel isolated or judged by anyone while you're going?
Oh, yeah. Talk
a little bit about that.
There were, people that I felt like I always had, not with everyone, but with most people, I had to justify why I didn't want to be married to him anymore. Mm-hmm. I had to justify it. I had to explain it to everybody. It wasn't just okay that was my choice. It wasn't okay. I had to tell them why. What did he do? What makes him so bad? that was hard because I didn't
Right.
want to relive that over and
Right.
over with every
And you had
conversation.
tried so hard to hide it too, right? So
Right.
there was that.
Exactly. So, the people that knew prior knew what was going on, understood, but the people that, that I hid it from had a harder time dealing with it.
Mhm.
And then some people didn't think, and then they, you get the, till death do you part
Right. Right.
thing, where they, you married him, you knew who he was,
Right.
you need to stay with him. And that's not okay
Right.
because, we all grow, we all change.
Right. So how did you cope with those feelings, while you were going through that period of
I went to a
isolation?
therapist
Okay.
myself for a year. I had to because it was so much. I couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm. Did
And
that help? Was it?
I was breaking down. I was losing it. And I really needed to be strong for my kids. So I, saw a therapist and the kids did too.
Mhm. Was it helpful?
Yes, for all of us. It was
Okay.
helpful and needed.
Mm-hmm. And what about financial challenges during the whole thing? Michael was working, and that was a blessing, really, right?
Yes.
So he wasn't in a detox or
Right.
thing like that. So, but were there any financial challenges while he was out of the house?
Yes, because there was no child support agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to borrow money from family, not just to pay for the divorce, but, for a mortgage payment or for, food, you know what I mean? So I had to borrow money, which I'm still paying back.
Mm-hmm. And with self-care, let's talk a little bit about that. Was there anything that you did in terms of like a schedule that you found helpful, meditation, exercising?
Exercising was definitely like I would spend, I do a workout before, in the morning, go for a walk, a jog, whatever, just to get rid of help with some of the anxiety. And like I said, and being in therapy was definitely helpful.
Looking back on the whole situation, what advice, if any, would you give to someone who's in the process of divorcing an alcoholic or thinking about, starting the process?
I would say talk to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
You'll need someone that doesn't judge you,
Mm-hmm.
that can listen to you objectively, can see things from both sides. You know what I mean? Because sometimes maybe I was being unreasonable about something, and I would also say, support your kids' mental health.
Right.
Keep that in mind because even though you may think they don't know what's going on or they don't know everything that's going on or whatever, they feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They know more than you think probably.
Mm-hmm.
And try to have a plan. If you decide you want to get divorced, then try to have a plan to secure yourself financially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you going to do for money? Because I didn't really have that plan. You know what I mean? Because thankfully, I took some steps. So at least I knew the mortgage was going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I didn't know what I was going to do because I was only working part-time and I made very little money. So I didn't have the resources to handle everything on my own.
Right. And how did the kids' relationship with Michael change or evolve during the course of the divorce?
So when he was at his worst, they didn't really see him because he was in a bad state and they didn't feel comfortable. But that eventually changed. And I think that they have a much better relationship with him now.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Did you face any moments of personal growth? Was there sort of any, aha moment when you overcame some of these obstacles and you felt like, you know what, I may have really grown from this?
I guess my biggest moments of personal growth was going out and getting a job again, a full-time job, having to get back into the workforce again, which I hadn't done for many years. I mean, I had work jobs, but not in an office for a long time. So thankfully, with the help of many friends, I have continuously moved into better jobs over the past few years. And now I'm successful in a job that I love. So I wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of friends. So I'm very grateful for that. But that was definitely a lot of personal growth there.
Right. So let's see, 2019, we're now 2023. So it's been 4 years since the divorce.
Yep.
And is Michael sober? Is he still struggling with alcohol? What's your relationship with him now?
We don't really have a relationship right now. I would hope that one day we could, but as of right now, we don't. However, the kids do, and that's what matters. They're adults, but it's really important that they have a relationship with their dad. I think it will take us time to get there, but I hope that we get there. And I wish him nothing but the best in the future. I want him to be happy. I want him to find his happiness. I have found happiness in my life, and I hope to continue doing that.
So your life has changed dramatically. You've got a job, you've got a career, you've got a new relationship, right?
Yeah.
So, in what other ways has your life changed? Are you able to, do you feel like you're more resilient to
absolutely.
obstacles? Talk about that a little bit.
I feel like I am so different than I've ever been throughout my whole life. That this experience and the people that supported me helped me become a much stronger person. I have much more confidence in myself, and I'm doing more fun things. I'm traveling, and which I've never done, and I will continue to do that. I just got my passport. I've never had. I'm so excited about that. I have so much to look forward to. And I'm in a relationship now where I'm very cared for. And I don't mean that financially. I mean, cared for, like, emotionally, very kind. So, and he makes me happy. So, and we do things together, and I'm just, watching my kids grow and become what they're meant to be. And it's new. I mean, it's a different life now, and it's not what I expected. If looking back, 15, 20 years ago, I didn't know where I'd be here right now, but I am happy.
In your mind, what are some misconceptions of surrounding divorce with an active alcoholic involved? How do you think society could better support people like you who are married to active alcoholics and who are facing the prospect of divorce?
I would ask the people it's hard to be in someone else's shoes. It's hard to know what they go through. And, people, not every alcoholic is the same. Not every alcoholic, you know what I mean? There are different situations. So don't judge the person for leaving their spouse because they're an alcoholic. And like I said, till death do us part. I feel like some people, feel that I should have stuck with it no matter what. I married him. And I didn't feel that way. I felt like I grew. I had my own self-esteem issues, when I was younger, so that maybe I didn't think I deserved better, but I do now.
You've been able to establish boundaries and better recognize your self-worth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, awesome. I'm so happy for you, Doreen.
Thank you.
Success stories.
But like I said, you were a big part of me getting to where I am today. And I thank you so much for your support.
You're welcome.
You have been a great friend to me. I really appreciate it. You've
so
always been
welcome.
kind and understanding, and those are wonderful qualities in a lawyer.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Well, that's it. Thanks again, Doreen, and see everybody next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. Remember, the information shared in our episodes is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal advice. Stay informed. Stay empowered. This is the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast.